Fellow tennis nerds, I hope you are well. Today I have a distinguished guest in Max Bauer, who is the Senior Global Product Manager for tennis rackets for Head. So we're going to get into the weeds about this one today. It's the Boom. And we're also going to talk about the new Head Squared. So it's going to be an interesting one. Thanks, Max, for joining me.
Hey Jonas, hey tennis nerds, great to be here again. And yeah, can't wait to tell you some details about the upcoming launches that we have.
Yeah, it's a busy year. We talked before we started, like how busy now the whole industry is. Like there's just new launches all the time. From a like being a part of that, how does that feel for you? Like it must be like a more intense work schedule right now.
It is absolutely. I mean, for us, obviously having the 2-year launch cycle and 5 silos or franchises, however you want to call it, it's obviously busy to develop. We always have more or less 1 year to come up with new designs, new layups, new string patterns and stuff like this. So obviously it definitely keeps us busy. Our competition also seems to launch a lot right now. So in general, it's kind of an industry trend that more and more things are being launched, which is good and bad at the same time, I guess.
Yeah, it's good in a way that, there's a lot of fun things to buy, but
Exactly.
it's bad because you can get overwhelmed, right? Also as the customer, like I know you have your racket compass, which I think helps for some players because you have the most silos, so they have to figure out like where am I on this silo list, right? But that actually helps, I think, to get like the power and that. And you
Definitely.
keep updating it every year, that compass, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're also working on some other more technological things where we help orientation of the consumer. So we're using AI in that sense. So things like a chatbot or maybe even in the foreseeable future, video-based tools to make racket recommendations is something we have our list where we look into. So yeah, we are aware that we have lots of products. In the end, we also offer a product for every single consumer out there, and then the consumer even has some choice in terms of designs, which I think is consumer friendly, but at the same time, we are being challenged to make the orientation as easy as possible. And this is something we are working hard on.
And you mentioned AI there, and that's something that's more and more a part of all our lives, right? Like we're all just getting affected by AI. I make music on the side of tennis, and I use AI tools to produce a lot of it, like some of it. And it's scary and exciting in like both ways, right? For you guys, like how much is AI affecting you in the way you work?
It is a lot. I mean, obviously, in marketing, it makes our life much easier when it comes to product texts and that kind of stuff. Makes it easier. We're also starting to use it for some campaigns. So everything on the creative side is obviously one topic, but at the same time, we are starting to use it a lot in R&D. R&D is generating a lot of data. We also look into new ways of generating data, both on the pro player side, but also on the kind of recreational racket development side. And also, I guess it's bridging the gap now to Boom as well, where we also used R&D in the R&D AI a lot to basically make the new generation of Booms nicer.
Yeah, I found that really fascinating. So you have the new Boom. We start there. It's a line that is the kind of newest for you, and like until we get to the squared, right? Like it's a pretty fresh line in your silos. How did you use AI there, and what do you look to improve? Like, because you have a short time to try to work out intensely how to make the product better. And so, what did you work on, and how did you use AI in this process?
The new generation of Boom was all about power. So this is the primary thing we wanted to get right. And at the same time, we have two power silos. So we have Extreme on the one side and we have Boom on the other side. And with Extreme, we really try to be very aggressive, focus a lot on the spin side of things. And Boom is more comfortable, more related to touch, bit more lifestyle and easier oriented. So it needs to be somehow effortless power. It needs to be easy power. It needs to feel explosive, and it just needs to be fun to play with and maximizing touch. And this is what we really focused on. So I think in terms of touch, even from the first generation of Boom, we were pretty good. So the feedback on the comfort of the Boom was always really great. Everyone felt it was quite easy to play with and it's fun to play with. The only negative feedback we got after the first 2 generations of Boom was that it sometimes became a little erratic when you went for those really powerful shots. Me personally, I have quite a vertical swing, go big on forehands, and sometimes it was just flying a little bit. So sometimes it was powerful, but it was not kind of controllable power when you really went big. And this is something we wanted to optimize. And yeah, as I said, we are using AI for the new string pattern development. So talking about power, there's multiple things you can change in a racket to increase the power potential. I think overall the biggest influencer is, I guess, the string bed. Usually the more open you go, the more power you have. But then sometimes if you go too far, it's not a power that is like demandable in the end. And therefore we have developed an AI algorithm which is taking multiple data sources into account. So it's all kind of subjective feedback that we collect from all kind of players. That's one source. And the other source is Hawkeye data, or internally we use TrackMan a lot, which is a radar device. So we measure ball speed, spin rate, all that kind of stuff. So that feeds into the AI algorithm. And ultimately, we also use lab data where we fire balls onto the rackets and measure like the rebound velocity versus the incoming velocity and all that kind of stuff. And then basically we can tell the AI algorithm that we want to optimize the string pattern for power and touch. And then it gives us recommendations of where we need to drill the holes and how we need to set it up, where we need to have certain dynamics. And yeah, then those recommendations are ultimately produced and being made into a prototype. And then we go on court and validate it.
Yeah, it's interesting now because like you have so much data that you need to use, which is obviously how you want to develop products. You want to use data. But tennis is such a feel game, right? Like you're actually
Absolutely.
playing tennis. It's a human playing. It's not an AI robot, thankfully. So how do you kind of use that? Like you have the data and then you have, you know, you guys as play testers and obviously players of all kinds of levels, I guess you use in your testing. How do you take like the data versus the feel scenario?
Feed is the most important thing by far, obviously, for us. I think nowadays lots of rackets are very similar in terms of performance, and you can, in the end, increase performance by just feeling comfortable with it. That increases your confidence, and then that has sometimes more effect on your actual output compared to any kind of power or control technology. So feel is by far our biggest priority, and we have done loads of research. It's the most essential part of every new racket development. So yeah, we did like a lot of fundamental research where we looked at what kind of parameters influence the perception of a tennis player the most. Yeah, we now strive always to optimize it in every single development. So usually the first thing that we actually try to figure out if it's even a noticeable difference. So before we ask people how they like it, we even first of all try to figure out, can you feel it or can you not feel it when we do a certain change. And then later on we go into more and more detail, and we have our expert jury internally which judges the feel of tennis rackets. And also the latest addition in our R&D is a sound engineering lab. So we basically measure the sound now of every single racket, and we look into psychoacoustics, and we play the sounds to a certain jury and let them judge the sounds. And yeah, therefore we also optimize the sound of every single racket next to the impact feel of every single racket, so that yeah, you guys out there on court have the biggest enjoyment that you could possibly have with the new boom.
I find that fascinating, like this that the sound is so important. But you know when you watch tennis, like if you or even golf or other sports, like that impact sound, right? That's so important in giving you feedback, but also in giving you a sensation of enjoyment, I guess. Like you wanted to say,
Exactly.
like I have a certain sound to give you that like nice feel. So I think that's important. Did you change the mold in any way on this racket, the new booms, or is it the same mold as the previous one?
We only changed the string pattern this year. We didn't see the molds being like the biggest influencer for the parameters that we wanted to fine tune. We also changed the carbon fiber layup a little bit to increase the stability, but at the same time maximize comfort, which is always a bit of a tricky thing. But that's what we aim for, and I think we did a pretty good job there. But yeah, that's the major updates. To give you a bit of a teaser, though, we potentially look into upgrading the mold next time.
Cool. I like it. I've been playing mainly with the Boom Pro. I played also the Boom MP, but the Boom Pro is more for my game. But I do feel like there's the high bore layup, which I guess is the big change you've done in the layup, does give you a bit more power. It feels like, or it looks a bit more stable, so slightly stiffer, but not like harsh on the arm or anything like that. Is the comfort thing something you really work on? Because historically you've always been kind of a feel control brand. That's always been head to me, and I think to most players who really enjoy head products or head rackets especially. But nowadays it's all about like looking for extra power, a bit of extra spin, and it's a tough thing to actually make it work together, that you actually have a comfortable product that has good feel that still is somewhat powerful.
Exactly. That is obviously a challenge, and honestly, like even on the pro player level, you see it that like comfort and confidence and nice feel becomes more and more of a topic. It's not anymore pure performance, and also the players are looking for more maneuverability, for example, nowadays. So it's not as it was like 15, 20 years ago, where the stiffer the better or the heavier the better and stuff like this. So this has even changed on the highest level of performance, and obviously we want to provide rackets for all players out there, which is why we also need to look into this whole domain of comfort. And as I said before, comfort has such a huge influence on every single other parameter. So it's nowadays almost a must have criterion for a consumer. Like every kind of racket, even though sometimes it is this kind of player control racket, even those rackets, we have to look into this comfort topic a lot. So and for Boom, it's I guess the most important silo when it comes to comfort for us, because this is really the one that should feel easy, that should be fun to play with. So here especially we optimized it big times, and Hybor was helping us to get there, because Hybor in the end allows us to locate a certain level of stiffness very precisely to a certain location, which then allows us to make other parts of the racket softer without losing in the end the structural integrity of the tennis racket. And so this way we could shift around stiffness and softness into certain locations, which is then in the end the secret sauce that makes Boom the way it is now.
Yeah, and I think that's always interesting to see how the companies do it, because in some areas of the industry I can see a trend towards like, okay, you want more power, but then you have to dampen the vibrations, and the issue is obviously, we've talked about this before probably, but like the over dampening, and like you're not actually getting a good sensation of the ball, and that's so important when you play tennis, partly for results because you need to feel the ball to get control, but also for your enjoyment of tennis, like that you actually feel what's going on in the racket and not just hitting something that is completely detached from your sensation, kind of.
Yeah, honestly, I also think like we are at the end of overdamping. That's why we also introduced Hyper, because we don't see the damping trend going any further. I think like around 2022, 24, there was still a trend that rackets needed to be more damped and more plush every single year, and we needed to go to more extreme levels every single year. But we anticipate this to change a little bit again. So we want to bring more feedback back to our tennis rackets, but at the same time keeping it as comfortable as possible. And this is somewhere between a plush feel, a crisp feel, but the racket should also feel solid and stable. So yeah, we just try to get rid of all kind of negative vibrations or feedbacks and try to maximize the things that players like. So this is our main strategy for the upcoming rackets that we develop.
Yeah, I think I read the industry the same way as you there, because I feel like the over dampening is kind of on the way out, right? Players are going back, or like companies are going back to making a bit more on the power, a bit more on the connected side. Obviously, things in industries ebbs and flows in products, and you're like, okay, now the trend is this, and then you kind of readjust a little bit because you went too far. That's kind of how things evolve, I guess. And
Exactly.
that's always interesting. But you always have to, in your end, you have to always look at like what's happening in 2 years, what's happening in 5 years. How far ahead can you plan really today?
Yeah, in terms of playability, this is more difficult. Obviously, we have our opinion leaders, which we ask for feedback. You are, I guess, one of them, where we listen very closely. Then we have our pro players, and especially junior players, to be honest, because at a certain age, let's be honest, they don't switch much rackets anymore. But especially on the junior side of things, you get really great feedback, and we somehow look at 16-year-olds and the 14-year-olds of today and ask them for feedback, because that might be the guys who are the sinners and the Alcaraz in like 5 or 10 years. So obviously it's super interesting to listen closely to those guys and what they expect, what they need. We observe their game and how that changes. So that's something we do a lot, like foresighting and forecasting, which is mostly happening in the junior side of things. And obviously, we do all kind of innovation workshops. We also look at like mega trends. Health is one of those mega trends which we see, and yeah, we try to jump on those mega trends at the same time, looking into the micro trends which happen in the tennis industry. And then we just try to make the best kind of decisions. I guess it's a bit easier when it comes to design, because in design you can very much look at the fashion industry. You get those trend reports of what kind of colors will be trending in 2028, 29. So this is something where we have more accessible data. Whereas on the playability side of things, it's up to our expertise and up to the expertise of our network.
Yeah, that's also an interesting part. We'll get into the colorway because you've changed that quite a bit quite soon. But first, like, what would you say? I mean, Boom is a power racket, but how would you make the Boom different from the Extreme? Is Extreme is obviously made to give you a bit more lift of the ball. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. The Extreme is really optimized for spin, and the Boom is optimized for touch. So definitely the Boom feels a bit softer, a bit more damped as well, even though it might go into another trend direction. But it's definitely the one with the plusher impact feel and where power should come easier. I guess when talking about what kind of player should use what kind of racket, I guess it's very much up to the swing. So when you imagine a forehand, if you have a bit of a flatter and shorter swing, maybe Boom is easier for you because it gives you easier power, it gives you a little more forgiveness. And the Extreme is for a very wide, big swing with some more vertical movements. So I guess that's the main differentiator. Two different ways of power. One is easier, and the Extreme is, I guess, a more aggressive, direct impact feel. Yeah, and it just allows more spin when you hit it really big.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of analyzing it, and I feel like it's the the Boom is more for like a flat hitter, and it could be a good like I'm guess like I'm seeing the Boom MP, or even if you go lighter for some veteran players, but it could be like an ideal doubles racket, for example, or players are like a little bit older who wants more help on the ball. But now it feels like also like everybody wants to play with more power, so it's becoming like a line that is something that everyone can use. You know what I mean? Like that's a little bit more the trend we're seeing. Like most players are not into prestiges anymore. They're more moving away towards like, is it power or is it spin? Those two kind of categories.
Yeah, it's quite a big move from prestige to boom, I would say. So I would not recommend that kind of transition because that's basically the two extremes on the market, I would say. But yeah, we can definitely see it. We see lots of pro players switching right now from the prestige to the gravity. In the end, we consider the gravity like the modern version of prestige. It's a very control oriented racket which gives you great precision, but it's a little less demanding and more forgiving compared to a prestige. So we see many players gravitating to the gravity, which is, I guess, good for us. Sad for the prestige. We will still upgrade the prestige and bring out new prestiges because we still see quite a huge audience which still enjoys that very demanding and unique feel that the prestige offers. But yeah, in general, the trend is going towards more powerful rackets, which is why we shift our whole spectrum a bit from control to power.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think like prestige is kind of in your DNA, right? In your heritage. So I think that there are some really die-hard fans of that.
Yes.
But obviously you might not need to release five different prestiges because there's a lot of overlap in your silos. So that might not be it. But you need that kind of iconic prestige feel for some players, you know. And then you also have, of course, radical, you have speed. But I do see on the Pro Tour a lot of gravities and a lot of people asking me from challenger players up to top 50 about like, hey, I want to try the gravity. Or if they play Gravity Pro, they now curious to try the Gravity Tour 98, which it's a question I've got from a lot of pro players actually.
Yeah, Gravity Tour was a huge success for us, honestly. I mean, we kind of anticipated it as well because this kind of racket was missing in the range. But yeah, we see a huge success there, and we also see it mostly again with junior, very highly skilled junior players. So I think globally it still needs some time to build its own brands and become this really important franchise for us, but we can definitely see growing numbers, growing interest, and it's just an amazing racket. I use it personally myself, so I love it.
Yeah, it's a great frame. I would love a 1620 option, but obviously it might be something available to some pros, but it's like a very good frame And I've worked with players who switched to the Gravity Tour 98 as well from like blades and stuff. So I think you have found a good spot in the market where you get a bit more forgiveness and a bit more launch than like a typical 1820 or dense pattern racket like the Radical, but it's still like that plush control that you want.
Exactly. It's the
From that
same
segment.
thing on the control side, which we have also on the power side. The radical is more direct. The radical is, I guess, for more versatile players who can be found anywhere on the court and players who use a lot of spin to get that precision. So this is what radical is all about. And then the gravity is again more for flat hitters, for hard hitters. I mean, Rublev, Zverev, I think they're great testimonials for the gravity. So they show quite well what this racket is about. And then ultimately we have our speed in the center of the universe, which is the best out of all worlds.
Yeah, that's also super popular now among pros. I've seen some high level switches in the top 20, top 50 to the speed. And that must be exciting for you guys because I mean, obviously you have Yannick, which is huge, but then previously we had Novak for a long time and he's still there. But I guess now Yannick is bringing a lot of players to the speed for you guys.
Percent. I mean, honestly, though, also in terms of the playability, it's just such an all-rounder and everyone's darling. So usually, anytime a pro player comes to us, there is at least one speed in the portfolio of rackets we provide to them and test with them, and it's always an easy winner. So it's always in the final choice. It's also the most go-to racket when people come from our other brands, for example. So the whole playability speaks for itself, and yeah, obviously Yannick's successes on the tour do us a huge favor, especially like Yannick is just popular all over the world, such a great player. So it's just great to have basically after Novak directly the next number one or at least number two in the world endorsing our most important racket.
Yeah, it's so good for tennis. I mean, we're both tennis fans, and many of you guys listening, of course. But it's like amazing that after Roger, Rafa, Novak, I mean Novak's still around for a few more years probably, but we have Carlos and Yannick, and it's like who could have predicted that? Like we have already a super exciting transition to a new era of tennis players.
Yeah, it's crazy impressive how Novak keeps up with those guys, and even like he's even still able to challenge them, to win against them, and also I think he's still affecting the way they play and how they shape their game. So this is just super impressive to see, and obviously it's also for us super exciting to have Yannick as the face of the speed, and then obviously Novak still being around with his very own speed legend. So I think it's a really cool story, and those two basically pushing our speed is just a best possible situation for us.
For sure. So I have the Boom, the Pro here, and the colorway, it used to be mint green, and now it's more strong blue. This is obviously, I guess Wolfgang is still there in the design department. So how was the thinking around that? It's obviously gutsy to change. You always have to change the cosmetic, but with speed, you do very minimal adjustments because it's white and black. You cannot do so much, right? Or black for the legend. But here you went quite big on the change. What was your thinking?
I mean, we also use our different franchises to attract different kind of consumer audiences. And with some rackets, we want to always be very traditional, very elegant, very premium. And with some franchises, we look more into really trending colors. And the Boom is still a bit of a playground for us. Honestly, Gravity as well. With Gravity, we never had like the fixed silo color. So we always wanted to be very, very flexible. But for Boom, also, we want to focus more on trends. And we thought about, I mean, we all very much liked this teal color initially, and I think it was quite unique in the industry as well. But this time we looked a bit broader and we looked at our global portfolio of all kind of head products. And we saw a crazy success on the ski side of things. There was this blue ski, which popped out really nicely in the winter industry and on all kind of slopes around. And therefore, yeah, we looked into this color and tried to bring this color to the tennis industry as well. But obviously, we also saw a huge success of the Boom Alternate story in the first generation that we introduced it, and we also wanted to keep this one up. So yeah, inspiration was coming from ski. Obviously, we also had some chats with Lorenzo, what he likes and what he doesn't like, and then at the same time we had some talks with Coco about her color preferences.
Yeah, you need to ask the players because like that happens sometimes that the player don't want to play with what you propose, and then you cannot just like not think because you have two really strong ambassadors there and you obviously need them to be have some buy-in. But then you have the lavender option, right? Like it's lavender purple for Coco's audience.
Correct. Right there, it is. I mean, camera doesn't really do it justice right now. And this was also a funny one because initially on the first mood board that we had about the boom and the boom alternate, we were going into a more pink direction. And we had already a pretty developed pink option for boom, which looked amazing and which was very much liked internally. But turned out that Coco was not really a fan of the pink color. You can also see it when you observe her outfits and her appearance on court. She loves lavender. She loves purple. And this is then where we took the inspiration from. And we also very much like this tonal approach of having not too high contrast within our racket designs. This is something we've been pretty successful with in the previous boom generation and also on the extreme and radical side of things. So yeah, in the end, we wanted to bring the lavender trend color together with this tonal approach, and yeah, I think it's turned out incredibly.
Yeah, it looks great. I've seen it in person. And do consumers really care about the cosmetic? I guess, like I mean, like I would say the stereotypical thinking here would be like, okay, guys, they might play with this blue one, and girls, they might be more interested in this lavender style racket, right?
Yeah, we see that a little bit, but not necessarily. Like we also with the boom and boom alternate initially, we thought yeah, maybe more female tennis players will jump on this alternate version, but we actually saw quite a good mix. So we also saw quite some big sales in a more male audience for the boom alternate. And I also think even for the lavender nowadays, I think things are changing. So we see lots of players in the young generation, next generation from both genders jumping on both designs. So I think this is great. Yeah. So this is obviously something we consider and we want to make the most appealing designs for all kind of audiences, which is why we play around a little bit and have some more polarizing designs, but also some more traditionals at the same time. Yeah. But for Boom, we want to experiment a little bit, but we would never call out a racket design as either a male or female design. I think we just try to keep it as much balance as we can.
No, I know several guys who like custom paint their rackets in some kind of pink. So
Yeah,
it is
exactly.
definitely all over the place there. But it's still interesting to have all the options. I think this is a strength. Like sometimes I thought like, okay, ahead they have too many rackets. Like there's too many silos. It confuses the customer. But there's a strength in the options, right, as well. Like today, like everybody's faced with loads of options, no matter where you turn. Like how many iPhone colors can you choose? What should you like? The clothing, there's you can buy online whatever you want, and I think since people seem to be quite keen to have their own like cosmetic or their own like style, at least they want to express themselves even on the tennis court. So I think it's a strength then to you can go like really strong with that like extreme color, where it's like more like highlighter style. And then you can go, okay, no, I'm a prestige guy. Then it's like more towards the brown, black, like that old school. So I think it's a strength in that sense that you actually have all these options.
I fully agree. And we want to use it as much as we can to really offer all kind of designs for all kind of players and match it with the kind of playability so that we have a pretty sharp target audience on every single model. And we will definitely continue with that approach. Obviously, you also mentioned that you have a lot of choice nowadays, and I fully agree also right now in the tennis industry it becomes more and more tricky for the consumers to choose the right product. But yeah, we look into a direction where we rather optimize the whole customer journey in selecting the perfect racket rather than reducing our portfolio because we really see a need for all the models that we have in our portfolio currently.
Yeah, I think so. I've changed a little bit my mind on this because I think there's can be a strength sometimes in having all these options, because we're anyway faced with all these options, right? And for you, it's a complexity as a company because you need to keep updating all these rackets like every 2 years, and then it becomes like your schedule, I can imagine, is tough internally, right?
Yes.
And to make like significant improvements. But obviously, some other brands they also do like a lot of just a cosmetic update. So that's kind of common in the industry. It's like the only thing I dislike sometimes is when it's not clear whether it's a cosmetic update or not. So it's like at least you inform like this is just cosmetically. But then when you're trying to like a little bit hide it, and it's always good to say, okay, there's actually a different layout or there's actually a different something here. So I think that's they usually do that, but I know some other brands they sometimes
Yeah.
keep it a little bit like guessing game, if it's
Yeah,
update or not.
we usually try to have the biggest possible change that we can do. So, it's also a bit tricky because you like a product that so many players out there in the world love so much. you don't want to change it in a too extreme way, because then yeah, you might basically get rid of all your loyal customers. So we want to do minor and nice updates on all our products, and sometimes it's bigger changes because we receive some more negative feedback. Sometimes it's very subtle changes because we didn't receive any negative feedback and we have a large audience of players who is using a certain frame. But in the end, we always introduce our new technologies, and we also have the ambition ourselves to be a technology leader, to be an innovation leader. And therefore, yeah, we always strive to have the biggest possible change without changing it too far and taking risks. But at the same time, we also sometimes try to bring rackets to the market which have a bit more of a disruptive element to it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good segue straight into the squared, like which is a new thing in your silo. So talk to me a little bit, like how did you come up with the idea of another racket, and also who is it for, this racket, the squared?
Yeah, we have our inline range, the 5 silos that we talked about, which are part of the compass. But at the same time, we always want to develop things that might change the industry. And this was the approach with Squared. So we see Squared as kind of an innovation umbrella above the inline range. And we want to test out things. We want to go into extreme levels of certain parameters of a tennis racket. And then ultimately the things that work out and the things that we learn from Squared, they will inform the future inline range. So some certain elements of the power level will probably feed into the development of the Boom 2028. Some control elements will feed into the gravity. Then there is some comfort elements to it as well. So we really want to use Square to test things out and to go into extreme levels. How we came up with it in the end, we did a lot of consumer research, and again we were looking into trends, and we tried to figure out what are the pain points and also at the same time the things that excite the most tennis players out there. And therefore we went to the biggest audience out there, which is in the end players who just want to have fun on court, who see tennis as a lifestyle sport. They play tennis to interact socially. And one thing that we heard many, many times was friendly competition. So they want to compete, they want to work out, and at the same time, they just want to have fun. And we looked into the problems that those kind of players have. And honestly, some of them, they are lacking the power. So they are at the net, they can't put away a volley. Sometimes they even struggle to get the ball across the net, or they cannot generate enough depth. So we wanted to, yeah, kind of look into all those kind of aspects of power and make it as simple as possible for them. And then we saw lots of players also, yeah, suffering from tennis elbow or any kind of injuries, or in general just not feeling that the racket is comfortable enough. So power and comfort were two things. But this is something we also look into other rackets already. But with this racket, we really tried to investigate new directions of getting there to really maximize power, comfort. And I guess the secret was in the end to really maximize the maneuverability to get there.
Yeah, it seems like a very user friendly. I mean, it's obviously targeted towards like lower level to intermediate, right? Like I would say, like
Correct.
beginner to intermediate.
Yes.
And it's good to have, I think, in my head, like a silo that is easy to identify as that thing. Because I think for some, I mean, I talk to players of all levels on a daily basis, pretty much, like up to top 10, down to top a million, right? Like players who are completely new to tennis. And for them, it's kind of tough to know, like they go to a silo, they go to head extreme, and like, should I get team? Should I get MP light? Should I get? I mean, some descriptions on Tennis Warehouse, they're pretty good, like they explain. But if they know, okay, this whole silo, it's just okay. I just buy the square, because then that's for actually improving beginners to intermediates. So it's easier for them to kind of navigate the buying process.
Exactly. And this is also one thing that we wanted to look into with this model, because we just created one model. There is no Squared MP or Squared Pro or anything. There's just Squared. And we think this is enough because this racket combines so many things in such a nice way. So actually the orientation is quite easy. If you are new to the game, or if you start playing tennis more and more again, if you just want to have fun, like even for some higher levels of tennis players, it's a great racket to play with. It's a fun racket. Even for coaches, it's nice. It's very maneuverable and comfortable. So if you play for a long time, it's a great racket. We just wanted to keep things simple, and this is why there is only one squared, but at the same time, with the ambition to really maximize things and to disrupt the industry and our own portfolio a little bit.
How did you come up with the name? The name is quite unique in the industry, I would say.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, it was also big fights about this name, and the name is really incredibly difficult because you generate 50 ideas of different names that could be nice, and then you talk to your legal department, and then they basically kill your best ideas. So you have to do some compromises in the end. Like internally, we have one department which is called the I&I department, ideation and innovation, what it's called. And yeah, there we basically come up with all the ideas about future products. But I&I didn't sound too appealing for us, so we transformed it into I squared. And then in the end, we didn't like the I too much because it was kind of related to our previous intelligence technology. And that's why we ended up with squared. I
That's
hope you
good. I
like
mean,
it.
it explains everything. I don't think it's a bad name at all, because now it's like you have podcasts and everything, and they say something squared because it's something like times X, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that is interesting. But I think some players might think it's like it kind of talks about the shape of the racket, but that's not really the thing, right?
No, absolutely not. For us, squared means squared innovation, squared power, squared maneuverability. So everything just multiplied and more of it.
Well, I would guess so. So the key thing here is comfort. It's very headlight. I think it's one of the most headlight rackets I've seen. So meaning like there's a lot of weight in the handle compared to
The
other rackets.
most headlight racket, I would even say.
Yeah. And how did you get there? Like what was the because obviously with like a lot of headlight balance, the power in the hoop or the weight in the hoop will be somewhat reduced.
Yeah, exactly. It is a funny story. The way we came up with it was obviously that we tested heaps of prototypes. So I think over the years we had like 250 different prototypes that we brought out to consumers and tested. And it was a funny coincidence because we were, when was it, in I think it was 2022, where we basically had to finalize the Boom Junior, and we were going out there and testing the Boom Junior, and we were really positively surprised how stable such a light racket can be. And in the end, yeah, we tried the Boom Junior with this kind of different target audience, and then everyone realized it's shorter, and they all said, I don't play with a shorter racket. This is a kid's racket. Don't give me a kid's racket. This is disrespectful, which is right in the end. But at the same time, this shorter length brought so many benefits to the game of many players, and it's also just funnier to swing. I mean, it just makes tennis easier to have a shorter racket. And then we even did some studies, some medical studies on the effect of the racket length on tennis elbow, risk of injuries, muscle activity while playing, and fatigue, and all that kind of stuff. And we realized many benefits of this shorter length, but at the same time realized that a shorter length is nothing really appealing to a tennis player for obvious reasons. But then we basically had the aim to reverse engineer the feeling of a shorter racket. I guess everyone also at the same time told us the racket needs to feel light. I want to have something easy to pick up and easy to swing. And we really looked into this whole perception of light feel. And when you tell an engineer, make it light, the first thing they do is just get a really lightweight racket. So we had like some prototypes with 200 grams or even less, but this was in terms of playability nowhere near where we wanted to be. And yeah, therefore at some point we had the idea of minimizing the balance to basically give players the feeling as if the racket would be shorter and as if the racket would be crazy lightweight. And this was really like the magic behind it. So we really realized there that it's ticking the box. Obviously, we tried to go to even more extreme levels, to less extreme levels, but 295 was kind of the sweet spot. And I think it's also in terms of marketing quite nice to 295 grams, 295 millimeters. This racket is all about 295. This is something very appealing, which has even some health benefits associated to it. But finally, answering your question fully, it was a challenge in terms of engineering because if you add so much weight to the grip, obviously the head is losing some structural integrity to have some kind of durability, to have this soft and appealing impact feel. And therefore, we worked very closely with Toray, which is the biggest carbon fiber manufacturer out there, and we really looked into their whole portfolio of how we can solve this problem. And luckily, they have the T800 fiber in their portfolio, which is a bit of a stiffer fiber. And this gave us the opportunity to take away weight at the head without losing stability and solid, nice, appealing impact feel.
And it's still pretty comfortable on a stiffness level, right? It's always like
Yeah,
75
exactly.
RA or
Yeah, exactly. So it's still soft, obviously, because there's not many of those fibers in there because most of the weight is in the grip. So it has a nice balance to it. And yeah, we basically looked into every single touch point on how we can increase dampening and maximizing stability of the racket at the same time. And the fibers, they give us the opportunity to stabilize the racket. But then we also looked into fine tuning of the grommet set material to add some damping and some comfortable feel to it. Also, in terms of the string pattern, we went very extreme with 16-18. So this gives a lot of power, a lot of launch angle, making it easy to swing. And yeah, ultimately the weight of 295 grams, it's heavy. It doesn't feel heavy, but still this kind of weight adds some power and stability to the whole equation as well.
yeah, it's an interesting take. I found it quite fascinating, like with the length discussion, right? So you have in tennis like 27 inches, 68.58 centimeters is a tennis racket, and then like that's standard length. But then some players obviously play longer, up to 29, I guess is the legal one.
Yeah,
You juniors play shorter, and I often get questions from parents like, when should my son or daughter transition from 26 to 27? It's a tricky question to answer because it depends a lot on like their strength, actually, like how tall, how their growth spurt, and like that, and technique, of course, as well. But why is the are we stuck in 27 inches? Should we think about like having a slightly shorter racket? I mean, I know some pros experimented with short, like slightly shorter rackets in the past. Do you think it's a completely like there will just be no one buying it, or why are we not like having a like a slightly shorter racket?
I think definitely we should consider it, or at least players should make it part of their equation. I mean, obviously, pro players have usually the luxury to request it from brands if they want it. I would definitely give it a try because it has really some benefits to it. It just maximizes the maneuverability of the racket, obviously. I mean, you have to have some level of swing weight as well to get that power, obviously. So it's not for everyone, but I think the length is something overlooked in optimizing performance. So whether in both directions, honestly, also a longer racket has some benefits and is not really considered by all kind of tennis players. We offer a Gravity MP XL, which is honestly quite a niche product, so not many players are aware of it. Many players want to test it out. We will also introduce the XL version to our new generation of extreme rackets, which is coming soon as well. And so I would definitely promote the fact that the length is something we should look into. I mean, let's see how Squared is going, but I could imagine at some point just giving it a try to add a shorter adult racket.
Yeah, because I think there's one audience that I think about a lot, which you mentioned. You know, like obviously it's easy to get stuck in the advanced club level segment because there's a lot of players there. I kind of play there, you play there. So, and then you up to the pros because everybody cares about what the pros do, but they shouldn't copy the pros. We all know that, you know, it's a tricky situation there. But then you have all the you want tennis to grow and compete with paddle. I mean, I know you're in paddle, I know you're in pickleball, but we are tennis players. We want tennis to do well in the future. And I think for that to happen, you need to make tennis a bit easier. So
Correct.
whether that's like using shorter rackets, lighter rackets, or also adjusting the balls to having like more like low pressured balls, right? Like they actually play with green dot balls or something like, because I think when you see a lot of seniors doubles, it looks too difficult. You know, veteran doubles and like beginners, they have too much of a process to actually be able to hit a rally, like a proper rally. And that's what you want to be able to hit a rally from very early so that you get addicted to it. And
Exactly.
being addicted to tennis is a good thing generally because of health reasons. Right? That is the issue we have as an industry. It's like, how do we get people to actually play tennis twice and say, oh, I love this?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more because this is something we saw. Like obviously in the US, many players are shifting to pickleball nowadays. And the beauty of pickleball is you just pick up a paddle and it's easy to play and easy to use, and you have fun basically starting in the first session. And it's very similar in paddle. Might be a little bit more tricky than pickleball, but it's the same kind of story. It's more social because you're closer to each other. It's usually four players, like doubles, and it's just easy and fun from the very first session onwards. And tennis, to be honest, is sometimes quite tricky to learn and to get into it. I mean, we all love it, but you have to reach a certain level to really have fun. And we tried with Squared to make it fun earlier. And this is really like our mission with this racket, to make tennis again more appealing to a wider audience and to really make it easy for the consumer to choose the first racket to start this beautiful sport with.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Do you have it there to show, or can we not show it yet?
Absolutely.
It's gonna be out for sale in May, or when is it out?
It's coming in April. We launched
In
a
April.
teasing video on our Instagram page today, so it's coming on the 9th of April. So right for the summer season in North America and Europe. Comes with a pretty cool paint job, as we think.
Yeah, I like it. It's very unique in the industry, I would say.
Exactly, and it's like we also highlighted a little technology here. So on the inside of the racket, we made it glossy. On the outside, we made it matte. It's quite a cool paint job. It flips also from kind of a pinkish to a teal color. So especially in the sun, it looks absolutely incredible. Initially, we wanted to use this color on the boom, but we didn't think it's quite fitting. But then I had the prototype on my wall, and everyone who was passing by was grabbing it from the wall, and so it drew a lot of attention, and that's why we chose it.
Could be a good influencer racket for girls that stand by the net and take Instagram pictures. You know,
Yeah,
could be some one of those that end up in those shoots.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's a lifestyle audience. It's for those kind of players who are new to the game, who maybe even do other sport and then also start with tennis at the side. Yeah, it's just the easiest racket to play with and to have fun with and to enjoy the beauty of the game that we all love.
Cool. I like it. I like the idea. I hope to try it as well. I know Henrik has a sample that he tried and liked, but I haven't tried it yet. But I hope to do it.
I
Maybe
think
in
there
India
will
once if
will be
someone
one
has it
for
there.
you very soon.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So what's up for the next part of the year? We have a busy year ahead of us, of course. Tennis never sleeps unless it's December. So, like, do you have anything to tease in other upcoming launches? You have now Boom coming out for sale now in March, right? That's for sale.
Exactly. Boom is March, Squared is then in April. We have some pretty cool events also scheduled for Squared, so lots of nice content coming on our social media, and also we are collaborating with some other brands to promote it a little bit. So there's many exciting events and things going on with Squared over the years. So we want to obviously create the awareness. There's no pro player on it, which is why we have to find new and unique ways to grab people's attention and to make them curious about this racket. So I think, yeah, we are all pretty excited about the whole campaign of Squared. And yeah, we have some other smaller launches also coming up later this year. I gave already away a little bit of a
Mm-hmm.
teasing. Something yellow is coming during the summer. And yeah, then we have like one pretty cool project where we celebrate the past of Racket ahead a little bit. Something about prestige is coming later in the year. And finally, during the US Open, we will create something special together with Sasha. So this is also something you can be excited about.
Cool. So there's going to be a busy calendar year, but that's also fun in a way, right? Like you have a lot of things going on. And I guess you need to stay top of mind in today's world. You need like things going on. You can't just be sleeping on the wheel for 3 months because
Yeah,
it's not enough.
100%. I mean, it's usually like most of those topics are kind of just design updates with existing models, but we also want to tell some special stories. I mean, Head has so many great stories to tell based on the heritage, based on our players that endorse our brand. So we want to tell those stories to the consumer and then also offer some appealing new products which are attracting all kind of fans of our brand, of our players, and so on.
Do you have, when it comes to like pro player testing and stuff like this, do you think there will be more appeal maybe for the boom now that I mean, I've noticed that like the control aspect, which I sometimes, I really always liked the Boom Pro a lot, like from the first generation, we're on third now. But it was always a little bit of that like launch sometimes that could happen, like you discussed it, like in some small way, but it still could annoy you. But with this racket that I've been testing now for a couple of weeks, I think it is, I don't notice that anymore. I feel like it's a bit more of a control now. So it feels like now it's a more switchable option for pros. Like, are you getting maybe more pros on the boom, or is it tough to get them away from speeds and gravities? It's like so easy to go towards that because it's like 100 square inch and so on.
We see the boom a lot now already on the junior segment. So lots of upcoming really good players are basically using the boom. So it's always the tricky thing with new rackets because not all the pro players, you know, how conservative they are and how much they like their rituals and how much they are in love with their own racket, and they are sometimes quite hesitant to change, which is a bit of a sad thing about our industry. But yeah, we can boom a lot in the upcoming generation. So I think it will be more and more present over the next years, and very similar to gravity. So we really see a trend towards more booms and gravities available in the pro player segment.
That's awesome. That's just happy to hear that for you guys. Well, this has been great, Max. I know you're a busy guy, and but it was really interesting to talk to you about Squared and Boom, two interesting launches. Really keen to try Squared, as I said, and like you said, it's going to be a pretty hectic 2026. Are you traveling anywhere this year? Are you going to Paris? Are you gonna go to Indian Wells? What's your the agenda?
I will be in Miami. That's the next big thing that is coming up for me. So unfortunately not Indian Wells because we don't do our pro player shooting there anymore. We do it in Madrid this year. So no Indian Wells, unfortunately, but Miami. Yeah, I will miss Paris, unfortunately, because we have a sales meeting in Singapore. But yeah, I'll see you guys definitely around.
Yeah, hope so. It's always fun to catch up. And hit some tennis balls. That's always what we want to do when when you beat.
Definitely.
All right,
Thanks
thanks
for
a lot.
having me. It was great.
If there's anything, just reach out and we keep in touch, okay?
100%. Thanks, Jonas.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.